December 16, 1944, Schneel Forest, near the Belgian-German border. Gerrit Klaus Zimmermann's fingers were stiff with cold as he fumbled to split 6 cigarettes among 8 men, whispering fractions in the dark while American artillery rumbled somewhere out past the trees. Command had promised them special rations for Hitler's last push in the Ardennes. Instead, they were left divvying up their daily smokes like beggars fighting over crumbs. 6 cigarettes. 8 men. Maybe tomorrow they'd get 5. If the supply truck showed up, if it even had fuel, if the jarbos hadn't torn it to shreds. Not far off, maybe 20 meters through the trees, an American soldier lay dead from the previous day's fight. Zimmermann had searched his pockets and found 3 full packs of Lucky Strikes, 60 cigarettes plus chocolate bars, chewing gum, instant coffee. The dead American carried more comforts than Zimmermann's whole company had seen in months. That little haul was just the beginning. News of it spread, and soon a kind of silent dread crept through the ranks, the kind that no defeat on the battlefield could match. Zimmermann couldn't have known it, but just 4 kilometers away, American factories were cranking out 290 billion cigarettes a year for their soldiers. Hershey alone was making 24 million chocolate bars every single week, all for the troops. The real story of this war, the difference between abundance and scarcity, was written in what soldiers carried in their pockets. For Americans, chocolate and cigarettes was so common they barely noticed. For Germans, they became reminders that losing was just a matter of time. On paper, the Wehrmacht ration system in 1944 looked decent. Supposedly, each German soldier got 750 grams of bread, 45 grams of butter or fat, 120 grams of sausage or cheese, 200 grams of meat if you could find it, and most importantly, 7 cigarettes or 2 cigars a day. Regulations capped that at 6 free cigarettes, but rules didn't matter much when there was nothing left to hand out. The ration system, set up in 1939, kept shrinking as the war dragged on and Germany's luck ran out. Even the official numbers showed how badly the Reich misjudged what modern war needed. Wilhelm Hoffmann, an army writer with the 352nd Infantry in Normandy, wrote in his diary in May 1944, "The supply sergeant just laughed when I asked about our cigarette ration. 6 per day, he said. We've had 6 per week for 2 months, and those were old French ones from 1940, so stale they crumble when you light them." Historian Robert N. Proctor dug into German records and found that by 1944, 87% of German troops smoked regularly, though they smoked about a quarter less than before the war, simply because there weren't enough cigarettes. 2/3 of Germany's tobacco factories had closed by 1942, switched over to making weapons. The SS, whose leaders hated smoking, handed out just 1.5 cigarettes a day, 6 for every 4-day field ration, claiming it helped calm nerves in combat. Then there were the Americans. Their K-ration was a monument to industrial might. Every day, each soldier got 3 meals, and each meal came with a little treasure trove, 4 cigarettes. So 12 a day, plus chocolate bars, 2 ounces at first, then split into 2 smaller bars, 2 sticks of gum, instant coffee, sugar tablets, even toilet paper. The cigarettes, Camel, Lucky Strike, Chesterfield, Philip Morris, were fresh, dry, packed in waterproof cellophane, complete with matches. Major Robert Johnson of the U.S. Army Quartermaster Corps put it bluntly in a 1944 report, "Cigarettes and candy aren't just for comfort. They keep morale up, give fast energy, and become currency wherever we go." Each soldier's daily comfort items cost 47 cents, a price America can pay 11 million times a day. Those numbers told an ugly truth. In 1943, American tobacco companies pledged everything to the war effort. The American Tobacco Company made 75 billion cigarettes that year. R.J. Reynolds added 60 billion. Liggett and Myers put in 50 billion more. Their whole output went to the military, with civilians getting what was left. Soldiers could buy extra smokes at PX stores for 50 cents a carton, 5 cents a pack. Germany? Their total cigarette output in 1944 was about 40 billion, and the Wehrmacht had to fight 80 million civilians for a share. No matter how you looked at it, the math was brutal. For every cigarette a German soldier had, Americans had more than 7. Their troops were better fed, better supplied, and back home, people still lived with plenty. Hauptmann Friedrich Becker, a captured staff officer, summed it up for his American interrogators. We counted everything: ammo, fuel, tanks. We never counted cigarettes and chocolate. We should have. That's where the real story was. The difference in chocolate alone said it all. Hershey ramped up to 24 million bars a week, more than all of Germany's candy makers combined. They made the D-ration bar for soldiers, 4 ounces of chocolate mixed with oat flour, tough enough to survive 120-degree heat, and packing 600 calories in something that fit in a pocket. Between 1940 and 1945, Hershey churned out over 3 billion bars for the military. The Army-Navy E Award? Hershey won it 5 times. Milton Hershey himself put it simply: the American soldier will fight better knowing he has chocolate in his pocket. It's a taste of home, a moment of comfort in hell. We'll make sure he never runs out. While Americans stuffed their pockets with treats, things looked grim for German soldiers on the Eastern Front. By 1943, rations had fallen apart. Gerrit Hans Müller, with the 6th Army before Stalingrad, wrote home in October 1942, "We get our 6 cigarettes maybe twice a week. When we take Russian positions, we search the dead, not for maps, but for makoka, their rough tobacco. We roll it in Pravda newspaper. Soviet propaganda, German lungs." It was a bitter joke. The supposed master race, now smoking Soviet tobacco in communist newsprint, while American GIs, called soft and decadent by Nazi propaganda, carried extra packs of quality smokes as standard gear. Feldwebel Kurt Weber from the 4th Panzer Army remembered a moment in January 1943. They overran an American supply drop meant for the Russians. Lend-lease crates everywhere, Spam, Maxwell House coffee, Lucky Strikes, Hershey bars. The Americans supplied their allies better than Germany could supply its own. German soldiers fought each other over the chocolate, tearing open crates with more cigarettes than their regiment had seen in months. The Lend-Lease program had shipped billions of cigarettes to the Soviets, plus 70,000 tons of processed food, chocolate and coffee included. American factories didn't just keep their own army flush with comforts. They handed out luxuries the Wehrmacht could only dream about. When German troops hit the Italian campaign in 1943 and 1944, it was their first real look at American abundance. As they pulled back through Italy, German soldiers stumbled onto American supply lines that worked in ways the Germans just couldn't grasp. Lieutenant Joachim Richter, fighting at Monte Cassino, wrote in February 1944, "The Americans shell us with more artillery in an hour than we get in a week. But worse for morale is what we find in their ruined positions: chocolate wrappers, empty cigarette cartons, half-eaten cans of food. They throw away more than we get." It hit even harder when they found American supply dumps. Unlike the carefully hidden, fiercely guarded German depots, American supplies seemed limitless and left almost carelessly. One captured American quartermaster truck could hold more comfort goods than a German battalion saw in a month. Unreizier Franz Hartmann remembered finding an abandoned American supply post near Anzio, hundreds of cases of K-rations, each with cigarettes and chocolate. We figured this one supply point, apparently unimportant to the Americans, held more cigarettes than our whole division had gotten since landing in Italy. My men stuffed their pockets, spread bags, even their gas mask containers with Lucky Strikes and Hershey bars. For 2 weeks, we smoked American cigarettes. When they ran out and we went back to our regular 6 a day, some men broke down in tears. D-Day made the difference in supply painfully clear. As Allied troops landed, they brought a logistics machine that changed the game. Operation Overlord delivered not just weapons, but mountains of comfort rations that first week. 14 million cigarettes and 800,000 chocolate bars hit the beaches at Normandy. Grenadier Joseph Wagner of the 21st Panzer Division saw it firsthand. American paratrooper supplies scattered everywhere across the Norman countryside. It felt like every American paratrooper dropped in with his own private tobacco shop. We stumbled on crates packed with cigarette cartons, actual cartons, not just packs. Each American carried more smokes than our whole company received in a month. And the chocolate, it was everywhere, some kind that didn't even melt in the heat. Meanwhile, our iron rations were sad little tins of meat, probably canned back in 1941. The difference hit hard. It broke our spirit. Feldwebel Heinrich Schmidt from the 352nd Infantry Division wrote, "My men keep volunteering for patrols, not for reconnaissance, but to search American bodies for cigarettes and chocolate. A dead American has more comfort items than the entire German supply system." At that point, it didn't even feel like war. It was rich men fighting paupers. The way the Americans replaced their losses only made things worse for us. German units just faded away, casualties, no supplies, while fresh American troops showed up every day, each loaded down with rations, cigarettes, and chocolate. We watched them toss out half-smoked cigarette packs just because they got a little crushed while we were picking bent cigarettes out of the mud and trying to straighten them enough to smoke. Major Karl von Runet, a supply officer for Panzer Lehr and no relation to the field marshal, scribbled the numbers in his journal. One American division in Normandy burned through about 130,000 cigarettes a day. That's more than 3 German divisions combined, and that's if we got our full allotment, which we hadn't for years. But it was the chocolate that really got to us. In Germany, chocolate meant luxury, celebration, childhood. By 1944, real chocolate was just a memory. Civilians hadn't seen any in years. Ersatz chocolate made from barley and fake flavoring sold for a fortune on the black market. Real chocolate was gone. But for the Americans, chocolate was just another ration item, mundane, sometimes even tossed aside. Their D-ration bars tasted only slightly better than boiled potatoes, and the new tropical bars didn't melt. By late 1944, their K-rations included commercial candy bars, Milky Way, Mars, even a special torrid zone bar that didn't turn to mush in the heat. Gefreiter Paul Zimmermann wrote about coming across an abandoned American position in the Hürtgen forest. Chocolate wrappers everywhere, some with a bite missing, just thrown away. He admitted his hands shook as he gathered them up, licking the scraps of chocolate from inside the wrappers. He hadn't tasted real chocolate since 1941. These Americans, he wrote, throw away what my children would consider a dream. The American military chocolate program was industrial might turned into morale. Hershey made millions of bars. Mars did the same, churning out specialty bars every week. Nestle contributed millions more. The Quartermaster Corps figured chocolate was perfect. High calories, lightweight, and it lifted spirits. Colonel James Harrison summed it up in a 1944 memo. A soldier eating chocolate doesn't feel like he's at war for that moment. He's home, he's human, he's cared for by his nation. That feeling boosts combat effectiveness more than any calorie count. German soldiers noticed the difference. The Wehrmacht treated men like machines, just keep 'em running. The Americans treated their soldiers like people, deserving some comfort, even in a foxhole. You could see the difference in every chocolate bar and cigarette pack the Americans carried, and it wore down German morale in a way propaganda never could. By late 1944, American cigarettes had become the real currency in occupied Europe. One pack of Lucky Strikes could buy a chicken, a whole carton, a bicycle. German soldiers found themselves spending their meager pay to buy American cigarettes from French or Belgian black marketeers, cigarettes American troops had traded or even thrown away. Obergefreiter Hans Dietrich wrote from Belgium, "The ultimate humiliation buying American cigarettes with German marks from Belgian farmers who got them free from the Americans. One pack costs more than my daily pay. The Americans hand them out to children as gifts." All of this pointed to a bigger problem. Germany's war economy, even with Albert Speer's miracles, could barely keep up with weapons and ammo. Cigarettes and chocolate, long gone, sacrificed for total war. Meanwhile, America's economy cranked out everything: trucks, tanks, planes, and comforts. The numbers tell the story. In 1944, the U.S. produced 500,000 military trucks, 96,000 aircraft, 17,000 tanks, and 290 billion cigarettes. Germany scraped together 40,000 trucks, 25,000 aircraft, 8,000 tanks, and 40 billion cigarettes. Most of those cigarettes went to civilians just to keep some sense of normal life going at home. The numbers said it all. America handed out comfort. Germany struggled just to survive. Think about it. The American supply system was something close to magic. They didn't just get bullets to the front lines, they sent cigarettes and chocolate too. Everything moved from factory to foxhole with a kind of smooth, relentless flow that left German officers both impressed and quietly miserable. American ships left port every single day loaded with millions of tons of supplies. Those Liberty ships churned out at a pace Germany just couldn't match. Carried everything from Sherman tanks to Hershey bars. Once they hit Britain or France, the supplies zipped through a distribution web that didn't seem to obey the usual rules of war. Erich Weiss, a German logistics officer who got captured in France, remembered his American interrogators grilling him about supply routes and depots when he described their constant shortages and last-minute fixes. The Americans looked confused. One even asked, "But how do you make sure everyone gets cigarettes?" Weiss just laughed and said they didn't. They couldn't. The American looked at him with something like pity. Then there was the Red Ball Express, a supply line running from Normandy to the front. From late August to mid-November 1944, it hauled over 412,000 tons of supplies, sometimes up to 750 miles in one direction. At its busiest, nearly 6,000 trucks were on the road at once, with most drivers being African-American soldiers stuck in segregated units. On its best day, August 29, 1944, the Red Ball Express delivered more than 12,000 tons. They hauled ammo and comfort items side by side, no difference in urgency. One driver, Lieutenant Robert Mason, remembered unloading crates of bullets next to cigarettes and candy. Same speed, same care. Quartermasters treated chocolate bars like munitions. Both were weapons in their own way. The winter of 1944-45 took this supply gap and made it brutal. During the Battle of the Bulge, German troops broke through American lines and stumbled onto supplies that made a mockery of their own hunger. Hitler's last gamble sent over 200,000 men through the Ardennes, but the attack bogged down. For a simple reason, German soldiers stopped to loot American food. Friedrich Bauer, with the 1st SS Panzer Division, wrote about overrunning an American field kitchen. Hot coffee, real coffee still brewing, stacks of rations, each with cigarettes and chocolate, fresh bread, canned fruit. They ate themselves sick, crammed their pockets with cigarettes, and moved on. Bowers, squad leader, joked, "We're not beating them, we're just robbing their grocery store." Some units delayed their entire advance just to eat. It crushed morale. German soldiers saw that Americans could lose mountains of supplies and not even blink, while their own men starved. Otto Kraus, a German NCO, found a wrecked American supply truck after an artillery hit. The driver was dead, but the cargo, cigarettes, chocolate, coffee, canned food, was scattered everywhere. Kraus and his men fought each other for chocolate bars. 5 years of combat, and here they were, brawling over candy. The dead American had more cigarettes in his pocket than Kraus had seen in half a year. Meanwhile, the Americans trapped in Bastogne got airdrop supplies, not just ammo and medicine, but cigarettes and chocolate too. The besieged GIs smoked freely while their German attackers stretched out the last of their own rations. When Germans finally surrendered, the supply shock didn't end. In American prison camps, German POWs got better food and more cigarettes than they'd ever seen as soldiers. It broke whatever pride they had left. Wolfgang Mehr, captured at the Bulge, remembered his first days as a prisoner. The Americans handed out 5 cigarettes a day, just one less than the official German ration, which he'd never actually received. They even apologized that chocolate was only available twice a week. Apologized. Mehr hadn't tasted chocolate in 2 years, and here the enemy was. Sorry they couldn't give him more. German POWs in American camps got regular military rations, cigarettes, chocolate, the works. After Germany surrendered in May 1945, the Americans reclassified these prisoners as disarmed enemy forces just to dodge the Geneva Convention rules. Even with that legal maneuver, the Germans still ate better than they had as soldiers. One prisoner remembered gaining nearly 60 pounds during captivity. Another wrote home about choosing between ice cream and Coca-Cola at Fort Lewis in 1944. Stuff American civilians couldn't even get because of rationing. The psychological impact hit hard. Prisoners wrote home about the sheer abundance they saw around them, and censors let those letters through. Back in Germany, families read about the enemy's kindness and plenty, messages that undercut Nazi propaganda better than any Allied radio broadcast. "We eat better as prisoners than as soldiers," one wrote. "The Americans have so much they can afford kindness to enemies," said another. All this while, American soldiers grumbled about boring K-rations and German civilians were starving. By 1944, the cigarette ration for German civilians dropped to 3 a day, then 2, then basically nothing as supplies ran out. Women under 25 and over 55 lost their tobacco rations altogether. Chocolate? Only the political elite ever saw it. By the end of the war, city dwellers scraped by on as little as 1,000 calories a day, sometimes a bit more depending on where they lived. Gerrit Hermann Wolf got a letter from his wife in bombed-out Berlin. "Little Klaus asks when Papa will bring chocolate home. I tell him after the war. He asks when that will be. I have no answer. We got our cigarette ration this week. 4 cigarettes for 7 days. I traded them for a quarter kilo of potatoes." Meanwhile, American soldiers mailed home chocolate and cigarettes as gifts. The postal system shipped millions of packages stuffed with luxuries German families couldn't even imagine. This wasn't just a military gap, it was a civilizational one. Private First Class Tommy Rodriguez wrote to his mother in Texas, "Sending you some German money as souvenirs and a few chocolate bars. Don't need them. We get plenty. Trade the cigarettes I'm sending to Dad for something nice for yourself." For German families, that kind of casual abundance was pure fantasy. Behind all this chocolate and cigarettes was the staggering reality of American industrial power. The same factories that cranked out B-17 bombers also made chocolate bars. The same efficiency that built Liberty ships produced endless packs of cigarettes. The organizational skill that planned D-Day also made sure soldiers had comfort items. By 1944, American war production ran at levels nobody could really wrap their heads around. 290 billion cigarettes a year for the military, 3 billion Hershey bars, 11 billion K-ration units, 500 million pounds of coffee, 100 million pounds of chewing gum. Germany's whole economy couldn't keep up with America's output of comfort items, let alone its tanks and planes. Every American cigarette butt tossed in the European mud was a reminder of industrial muscle Germany simply didn't have. During post-war interrogation, General Heinz Guderian admitted, "We calculated divisions, tanks, aircraft. We should have calculated cigarettes and chocolate bars." They told the truth. America could fight a war and barely notice. We couldn't feed our soldiers and civilians at the same time. American psychologists actually put a number on morale. Studies showed that soldiers with regular cigarettes fought 15% better. Chocolate lowered combat fatigue. The Quartermaster Corps treated comfort items as force multipliers, not just treats. Major David Eisenstadt wrote in 1945, "A soldier who knows tomorrow's ration includes cigarettes and chocolate fights differently than one who doesn't." He believes the system values his comfort. That belief turns into combat effectiveness that goes way beyond the item's actual worth. German soldiers saw all this and knew their own system offered nothing similar. The Wehrmacht demanded sacrifice, gave no comfort, expected endurance with no reward. Every missing cigarette, every absent chocolate bar was a reminder. Their country saw them as expendable. Lieutenant Friedrich Hoffmann wrote in his diary, "The Americans fight knowing their country cares for their comfort. We fight knowing our country cares only for our sacrifice. They have chocolate in their pockets. We have ideology." In the end, chocolate proved stronger. By early 1945, black market rates told the story. One American cigarette traded for 5 German ones. A Hershey bar could buy a Wehrmacht dress dagger. A carton of Lucky Strikes could get you a Luger pistol. German soldiers traded away military gear for American comfort items, the clearest sign of what really mattered. In the occupied towns of Germany, American soldiers ended up running the show in a way nobody really expected, just by handing out chocolate or cigarettes. When GIs shared a ration bar with a kid or slipped a cigarette to an old man, they did more to win hearts than all the battles put together. The gap between American plenty and German scarcity was impossible to miss. Karl Zimmermann, an Unteroffizier, saw an American soldier give a whole K-ration to a German kid. Suddenly, that child had more chocolate in his hands than he'd seen since 1940. The mother started crying, not out of shame, but out of sheer gratitude. She looked at this young American, probably drafted out of some factory back home, and realized he could give away treats the old German officers could never dream of. Meanwhile, Master Sergeant Bill Patterson, the supply sergeant for the 29th Infantry Division, kept meticulous records, ones that are still sitting in the National Archives. His notes tell you everything about how differently supplied the two armies were. January 1945, Belgium. We handed out 45,000 cigarettes to the battalion today. The guys grumbled because they got Philip Morris instead of Lucky Strikes, had to toss 200 chocolate bars that got soaked. Rules say no damage comforts for the troops. The German POWs watched us burn perfectly good chocolate. One of them actually cried. February 1945, Germany. Supply truck hit a mine. lost 10,000 cigarettes and a pile of chocolate. HQ says replacements will be here tomorrow. No big deal. The German POWs helped clean up and stuffed their pockets with anything they could salvage. Our guards let them? Why not? We always have more coming. March 1945. Rye River. We captured a German supply depot. The haul, maybe 1,000 cigarettes, all old French brands from 1940, no chocolate, no coffee, just some kind of fake tea. Their records said this was supposed to last an entire regiment a month. We hand out more than that to a single company every day. Dr. Vera Schreiber, a German chemist who worked on ersatz chocolate, gave her take after the war. We tried everything. Barley roasted with saccharine for chocolate, dried beet leaves for tobacco. It was a joke. American soldiers bit into real chocolate, 600 calories a bar. Our ersatz stuff barely hit 100 calories and tasted like sweetened dirt. They smoked Virginia tobacco. We smoked whatever would burn. Americans put the same scientific muscle into snacks as they did weapons. Hershey had food scientists making chocolate that wouldn't melt. Tobacco companies made sure the cigarettes stayed dry. Meanwhile, we, the supposed masters of science, couldn't even give our soldiers real chocolate or decent smokes. Then came Operation Varsity, the Allied crossing of the Rhine, on March 24th, 1945. The Americans pulled off the biggest one-day airborne operation ever. 16,607 paratroopers dropped, 9,987 Americans, 7,220 Brits. And get this, their packs included extra chocolate and cigarettes, specifically to hand out to German civilians. It wasn't just about fighting. This was comfort item diplomacy. Private James MacArthur of the 17th Airborne remembered, "They told us to bring extra chocolate for the German kids. Command said it would keep the locals calm, and it worked. Kids who might have turned us in came running for candy instead. Their mothers were desperate for anything, even a cigarette. We basically conquered Germany with Hershey bars." On the other side, German defenders watched the Americans toss around their surplus like it was nothing, while they struggled for scraps. The Volkssturm, Germany's last resort militia, was full of old men who hadn't seen chocolate since before the war, and kids who'd never tasted it at all. Meanwhile, American soldiers complained about getting the wrong brand of K-ration. Oberschreiber Franz Müller wrote his last diary entry before surrendering. "The Americans are coming, eating chocolate and smoking, always smoking. We have neither bullets nor cigarettes. The war is over. It ended when they could eat chocolate in combat." The Ruhr Pocket in April 1945 really drove the point home. The Allies closed the trap on April 1st near Lippstadt, trapping 317,000 German soldiers who slowly starved inside. Outside, American troops still had steady supply lines right down to their comfort items. General Lieutenant Fritz Bohlin, who led the broken Panzer Lehr Division, sat down to surrender and later remembered, "The American colonel offered me a cigarette. A whole pack, actually. Told me to keep it. I hadn't seen that many cigarettes in 2 years. He smoked through the whole meeting, stubbing out half-finished cigarettes. Each butt was more tobacco than my men saw in weeks." American psychological warfare teams saw their opening and went for it. They blasted out messages over loudspeakers. "German soldiers were eating hot food with real coffee while you starve. Every American soldier has cigarettes and chocolate. Surrender and eat tonight." The Germans listened, and the thing is, they knew it was true. When the final surrender came on April 18th, the Americans took 317,000 prisoners in one go, more than they'd captured in all of North Africa. Meanwhile, Hans-Peter Richter, who was 12 years old in 1945 and living near Frankfurt, watched the Americans roll in. Years later, he wrote about it. The first American soldier he saw was just strolling along, eating chocolate like it was nothing. Hans couldn't stop staring. He hadn't tasted chocolate since he was 7. The soldier noticed, broke his bar in half, and handed it over. More chocolate than Hans's family had seen in 5 years. Hans ran home, crying and clutching it like treasure. His mother divided it into tiny pieces so everyone could have a taste. They ate it slowly, almost like it was sacred. His little sister, born in 1942, tried chocolate for the very first time. She asked if this was what victory tasted like. Their mother told her, yes, this is what winning tastes like. They'd lost the war, but eating American chocolate, they felt the Americans had already won before a single shot. The Americans didn't just rely on propaganda. Their occupation policy poured out comfort items, cigarettes, chocolate, things Germans hadn't seen in years. Empty supply trucks returning from the front brought back tons of these luxuries. This wasn't just generosity for its own sake. It was strategic, and it worked. By the summer of 1945, American soldiers were giving out around 100 million cigarettes to German civilians every month. Adults got cigarette rations through the military government. It was more than the Nazis had managed since 1942. Kids lined up for chocolate, marveling at a kind of abundance their parents could barely imagine during the war. Colonel Frank Howley, the American military governor in Berlin, summed it up. We govern through chocolate and cigarettes as much as through force. Every German child eating Hershey's, every adult smoking our cigarettes acknowledges American victory. These comfort items do what propaganda can't. They make defeat real and somehow acceptable. German economists later picked apart the numbers and were stunned. In 1945 alone, the Americans gave German children more free chocolate than Germany had produced in the previous 3 years. The cigarettes handed out to POWs outstripped what German soldiers got at the front during the last year of fighting. Professor Ludwig Haar, who'd go on to help rebuild the German economy, put it simply, the Americans defeated us with abundance, not just weapons. They could give away what we couldn't even make. Every American cigarette, every chocolate bar hammered home that our economic system was broken. Jump ahead to 1985. At a reunion of the 82nd Airborne, a former Feldwebel named Kurt Müller, now an American citizen, spoke to his old enemies. You beat us with chocolate and cigarettes as much as bullets and bombs, he said. Every ration we captured showed us America's strength. You had so much. You could afford kindness. We had so little. We couldn't afford humanity. When I found American cigarettes on dead paratroopers at Normandy, I knew Germany would lose. No country that can give every soldier chocolate and cigarettes loses to one that can't. The room broke out in applause. The former enemy had learned the real lesson of the war. Abundance lets you be generous. Scarcity makes you cruel. One last story found in the German archives. A letter from Frau Elisabeth Hoffmann to her son Paul, March 1945. Paul, the Americans are here. They gave little Anna real chocolate. She ate it so fast she got sick. The American medic treated her, then gave her more chocolate, telling her to eat it slowly. They have so much, they give extra to a sick German child. Your father traded his Iron Cross for cigarettes. The Americans laughed and handed him whole cartons, saying the medal was worth more. They have so much they can joke about it. We were told they were weak, decadent, but they're not. They're rich beyond anything we imagined. The war was lost the moment they could afford to be kind to us. Paul never got the letter. He'd already surrendered his unit, ran out of ammo, then food, then cigarettes, in that order. After the war, the numbers told the rest of the story. Between 1941 and 1945, the U.S. produced 1.2 trillion cigarettes for the military. At the peak, they churned out 950 million a day. Each serviceman got about 10,000 cigarettes a year. American brands sent over 45 types of cigarettes to soldiers. At military stores, a carton cost 50 cents, just 5 cents a pack. Chocolate production exploded between 1941 and 1945. Hershey alone made 3 billion military bars, sometimes pumping out 24 million a week. Mars shipped 1.5 billion military products. All told, the US sent about 20 million pounds of chocolate to its forces every year. Each American soldier got 600 calories a day from chocolate on top of everything else. The German side? It was a different world. Military and civilian cigarette production together reached 175 billion, but only 40 billion went to soldiers. Chocolate? Just 10 million pounds a year, all types combined. And after 1942, military chocolate basically vanished. By then, only a third of German tobacco factories were still running. The numbers tell the story German soldiers already knew, freezing in foxholes from France to Russia. The US fought World War II with a level of comfort that would have seemed like luxury, even in Germany's best peacetime years. General Walter Model, right before he shot himself in April 1945, wrote an unsent report. We believed sacrifice made us strong. Hardship built character. Comfort, we thought, made men soft. The Americans proved us wrong. Their troops fought harder because they knew comfort waited for them. Ours surrendered because all they could expect was more deprivation. The Americans kept morale high with abundance. We crushed ours with scarcity. Every American cigarette was a bullet, every chocolate bar a shell. In the end, we were beaten by an enemy who could afford to be comfortable while destroying us. Just look at the math. If every German soldier got his promised 7 cigarettes a day, though the regulations capped it at 6 during the war, it would have taken 13 billion cigarettes a year. Germany barely managed that for both military and civilians combined. America sent that much to its forces every 2 weeks. Major Wilhelm Hoffmann, a quartermaster taken prisoner in 1945, tried to solve the impossible equation. For Germany to match American cigarette rations, it would have had to multiply its production 5-fold and cut off civilians completely. Matching American chocolate? Forget it. They would have needed more cocoa than existed in all the territory they could reach. When Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel signed Germany's unconditional surrender on May 8, 1945, American generals offered cigarettes to the defeated German officers. Keitel, the proud Prussian, snatched them up. In that moment, the war's reality was obvious. The defeated begging for comfort from victors who had so much they could give it away even to their enemies. Eisenhower's aide, Captain Harry Butcher, wrote, "The Germans smoked American cigarettes like drowning men gasping air." Keitel stuffed 3 packs in his coat. These were men who'd commanded millions, now hoarding lucky strikes. If you wanted proof of total victory, there it was in their desperate gratitude for American cigarettes. 5 years later, in 1950, a school teacher in Hamburg asked her class what they remembered most about the end of the war. 7-year-old Greta Miller, who'd been 2 when the Americans rolled in, raised her hand. The chocolate rain. She remembered soldiers tossing chocolate from trucks, kids chasing after the bars. Her brother had called it the day the world turned right side up when chocolate fell from the sky instead of bombs. The teacher, Frau Hoffmann, her husband had died on the Eastern Front, wrote in her diary, "That night, the children remember American chocolate more than German defeats. Maybe that's the war's real lesson. Abundance beats ideology. Comfort wins over sacrifice. A nation that can give chocolate to enemy children has already won. There's a final twist in all those post-war interviews. German soldiers who fought to the last for the Reich, who survived the Eastern Front, who kept discipline when everything fell apart, all pointed to the same moment when they knew defeat was certain. It wasn't when the Allies landed at Normandy or the Soviets crossed the border or bombers blotted out the sun. It was when they saw that American soldiers had all the cigarettes and chocolate they wanted and they had nothing. That's the real truth of the war. Industrial abundance, not ideology, decided victory. Hans von Luck, one of Rommel's best officers, wrote in his memoirs, "We thought we were warriors of a superior race, destined to rule by will and sacrifice. We lost to Democrats with chocolate bars, to factory workers carrying more cigarettes than our generals. America was so rich it could waste what we couldn't even make. Every lucky strike on American lips declared their victory. Every missing German cigarette confessed our defeat." When you look at the numbers, the final stats on comfort items, they tell a story propaganda can't hide. American forces, 1941 to 1945, that's all you need to know. Cigarettes handed out 1.2 trillion. Chocolate bars, 5 billion. Coffee worth 500 million. Poured into the ranks. Chewing gum, 100 million pieces. The average American soldier ate 4,300 calories a day. Comfort items racked up a $2.3 billion bill. Now let's look at the Germans. Same period, different world. Cigarettes, about 35 billion. Chocolate, pretty much vanished after 1942. Coffee, only ersatz after 1941. Fake stuff, barely drinkable. Daily calories, 1,800 if you were lucky. By 1945, comfort items had no budget at all. You don't really need spreadsheets to see what every German soldier figured out the hard way when they ran into Americans. These two armies fought different wars. Americans fought expecting comfort, and they got it. Their factories flooded them with everything from chocolate bars to bombers. Victory followed the nation that could keep its troops happy, even while fighting on two continents. Think about the German soldier clutching his ration of 6 cigarettes a day, if he got them, while Americans tossed half-smoked Luckies aside and munched on chocolate from every K-ration box. It's more than a story about supply lines. It's two systems crashing into each other. In the end, productive power won out, not courage or ideology. Every German who tasted captured American supplies or got a K-ration as a POW saw the truth. He'd been sent to fight the world's first military that didn't even know what scarcity was. He'd been told willpower and racial superiority could beat hunger and shortages. What he found instead was that the real power belonged to the side that could hand out chocolate and cigarettes by the ton and still have plenty left over. The cigarettes and chocolate weren't just treats, they were proof of something much bigger. America's system churned out abundance, so comfort came easy. Germany, built on sacrifice, could only deliver empty promises. Americans expected chocolate because their country could give it to them. Germans learned to expect nothing because there was nothing to give. In the end, the war's real story wasn't written in battle plans or propaganda. It was told by the numbers, by the tons of chocolate, by the billions of cigarettes, by the daily calories eaten or missed. The German soldier hoarding his 6 cigarettes and watching Americans flick theirs away saw the real balance of power. The Americans packed chocolate in every ration because they could. The Germans packed ideology in every order because that was all they had left. Between chocolate and ideology, chocolate won. Between abundance and sacrifice, abundance crushed sacrifice. The nation that could spoil its soldiers with comfort beat the nation that could only demand suffering. Everyone knew it, even if they didn't say it out loud. The German soldiers, promised 6 cigarettes a day but usually getting less, facing Americans with chocolate in every pocket, learned the truth, one captured K-ration at a time. In modern war, the side that can keep its soldiers supplied with comforts is already halfway to victory. American chocolate bars and Lucky Strikes weren't just luxuries, they were daily reminders that American factories could make more than enough, while German ones fell short again and again. Every German veteran who tasted American chocolate, smoked an American cigarette, or just watched American Plenty up close knew deep down the war was lost long before the surrender. The future tasted like Hershey's and smelled like Lucky Strikes. That's the real lesson of World War II, written in chocolate and cigarettes. Victory goes to those who can provide abundance, not those who demand sacrifice.